Hello, and welcome to the Straight to the Source podcast. I'm Tawnya Bar.
And I'm Lucy Allen, and we're looking forward to taking you straight to the source of the people driving our food and hospitality industry forward.
From shucking oysters in Woolloomooloo to grilling turbot at the legendary Elkano in Spain's Basque Country, Chef Remy Davis has built a career on curiosity, hard work, and knowing when to say yes. 3 passports, kitchens across the globe, and a passion for cooking with fire that shows absolutely no signs of burning out. Have a listen. Hello, Remy. Glad you could come in today. Thank you.
Hello, Tanya. Glad to be here.
Well, you are a chef. You've traveled the world. You've been cooking all over the world. Well, but you're from Sydney. You grew up in Sydney?
I grew up in Sydney. I was born in Boston in the United States, but I grew up in Sydney, in the eastern suburbs.
And at what age did you move to Australia?
I was 1. I got the passport, but I can't really claim it.
Well, are your parents Australian or?
They're Australian. My mum was studying over there. My dad was working, so I just happened to be born over there, and they moved back when I was 1. So it's nice.
So you still have dual citizenship?
I have 3 passports, actually.
What's the third one?
I have Australian, United States, and Lithuanian, and that's through birthright. So my parents on my father's side were from Europe, were from Lithuania, and during the Second World War, she was forced to renege her passport when she came over to Australia, and through a lot of paperwork, a lot of apostilles, it took about 2 years, I managed to get my Lithuanian passport. So it's incredibly lucky, but it's what's allowed me to work all over Europe with ease.
Ah, okay. Yes, to have 3 passports is quite handy, isn't it, when you're traveling the world?
It's not bad.
No. So where did you do your culinary training?
I did it at TAFE in Ultimo. No,
Ultimo.
Ultimo TAFE. But I did a sort of a fast-track version because I'd already working in a kitchen at the time. So I guess when I left high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was working in bars, and my best friend at the time was working in a restaurant. He said, "Hey, just come for a trial." And I went for a trial, and I just immediately fell in love with it. And it was sort of this cliche moment in, Kitchen Confidential, where Anthony Bourdain goes into a kitchen and he hears the hissing and the clanging and the banging and the pots. And I was like, oh my God, I can get paid to do this. And so I really liked it. And then after that, I started working straight away, shucking oysters, making salads, and then needed to get my certificate 3. So in order to do that, I went to TAFE. But instead of doing a formal apprenticeship, you can pay into a fast-track version. They do a accredited learning where if you pass exams, they give you the certificate. So I did it all in about a year. But because I was working 5 days a week, going to TAFE 2 days a week, I ended up not really going to TAFE because they were my weekends. But yeah.
Did you complete it?
I completed it. No, I'm certified.
Okay.
I got my food safety certificate.
So how many years ago was that?
That's going on. I think that was in 2015.
And have you ever looked back?
I didn't look back, but last week was a bit of a blast from the past. I was doing an Oz Harvest dinner, and my teacher, the TAFE teacher who was there, he actually was working with Oz Harvest now as a teacher for the nourished kids. So he's helping impoverished children in the communities, and he was there, and he actually came to the event, and the executive from Oz Harvest, Demir, was also taught by him. So a guy called Kevin. So it was a bit of a full circle moment for all 3 of us, which was lucky.
Isn't that neat, though? Doesn't that make you feel good?
I had no idea. And I walked into the Oz Harvest kitchen. I saw him then. I said, I know you. I recognize you, And he didn't recognize me because he's taught so many kids. But then we established a connection, and it was really special.
Ah, so when you finished and you got certified and you're working full time, shucking oysters, where were you working?
Shucking oysters, making salads down the road in Woolloomooloo at Otto.
Okay.
So I did my sort of apprenticeship with Richie down the wharf, which was a lot of fun. He's a fantastic cook, amazing palate. He really inspired me to sort of take it to the next level.
And you still keep in contact today?
We still keep in contact. Yeah, he's a good friend and mentor of mine. Yeah.
And how important was mentorship? Do you have other mentors?
I got a lot of other mentors. Yeah, one of the biggest mentors in my life is my uncle, Tim. He used to have a restaurant on Oxford Street called Claude's back in the 90s. You probably know it.
I know it. And also Christopher Tay, who now has Hearth, that was formerly with Black Star Pastry. He started out his career at Claude's.
Yeah, so it's a small world. Tim's been an absolute, icon in my life and my career. Always go to him for mentorship, ask him questions about flavors and everything. He's a phenomenal cook.
It's funny, we're in the truffle season. We're just coming into truffle season here in Australia. And I think Claude's was one of the first restaurants to have Perigord truffles, Australian grown, on the menu.
It just may have been.
Yeah.
This is a good sounding board. You know, if I have a bad idea or a good idea, I'll ask him about it.
What's he doing now?
He's cooking at home. He lives in Bronte, just, spends a lot of time cooking and recipe testing and just hanging out with his son, who's a very keen surfer, my cousin.
Well, having that opportunity to travel, when you left Australia, where did you go and why?
I went to London via Italy. So Otto's an Italian restaurant, and so I had a lot of Italian friends. So my immediate plan was to go to London and stop off in Italy on the way. So I spent a bit of time in Trieste, so on the northeast, most northeastern part of Italy, close to the border of Croatia, which was fantastic. And then I went to London, and I guess London was an easy connection. I mean, for most Australian chefs, it's just without the language barrier, and they have some really, really incredible kitchens over there. Michelin style was sort of always alluring to me. So I sort of jumped over there and started working. It was fantastic. It's just completely different to anything else I'd experienced in Australia at the time. Just sort of working my way up through the kitchens, which was really fun. And so London sort of nightlife was just completely different to anything I've experienced in Sydney.
Well, how did you get the job? Did you just pound the pavement, or did you know someone, or?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, John Raleigh, who I did Fire Kitchen with last week, we had a mutual friend in common. And back in 2018, I didn't know him at the time, but I hit him up and said, "Hey, I'm going over to London. Can you get me a trial organized?" So he reached out to some contacts. He'd worked in London probably 10 years prior, for about 6 years. So he hooked me up with a couple of trials, and there I made my way.
Wow. You mentioned John Raleigh. Yeah, he's a good friend of ours too. How was the Fire Kitchen? This is part of Vivid.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was a really fun experience. It was really well organized. The whole thing was great. I think the crowd was really receptive. It was a super fun experience. And the guys doing it were incredible. I didn't have to do much work. I just sort of rocked up and it was done. So,
it was a great setup.
It was a great setup.
Shout out to Alex Herbert, actually. She did a great job.
Big shout out
too.
to Alex. She did a fantastic job organizing all of it.
Yeah.
Like an orchestra.
So from Europe, traveling around Europe and just, cooking and enjoying the nightlife and all that Europe offers, why did you come back to Australia?
Well, I was in London at the time, and I'd done about 5 London winters, and I thought, I cannot do another London winter. And so before I came back to Australia, I decided to go to Spain. And so because of the surfing culture and the affinity for food they have, I was working at a restaurant called Sabor in London with Nieves Barrahan.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been an incredible influence on my career. I was working there for about a year, and I just thought, I really, really like this style of food. It's so ingredient-led, and everything was, sabor means flavor in Spanish. And it really was. Everything was so delicious. And so she sort of inspired me a little bit to go to Spain. So I decided to go to Spain. It's always been a little bit of a dream of mine. I didn't speak any Spanish at the time, but I really wanted to work in Spain.
And so, did you have any friends there? Did you just get a hotel, get an Airbnb? What did you do?
I just packed up my bag and caught a flight over there with my girlfriend at the time. We just moved there. And I just wanted to work I really, really wanted to work at this restaurant called Elkano. At the time, I think it was 16 or 22 in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 1-star, but highly regarded as one of the best fish restaurants in the world. And I really, really wanted to work there. And I just had this sort of idea in my head if I go work there, sort of springboard my career or whatever. And it's just such an amazing place to work. So I would do everything in my power to get a job there.
So what are some of the things you learned while working there?
First and foremost, there's no recipes in the entire kitchen, which was a massive shock to me because I thought I'm going to, learn all these secret recipes and gain all these amazing skills. And the skills I did gain, of course. But it's an institution, really. The whole sort of everything, the way the entire business is built, from the way they have family meal, they've got white tablecloths, cutlery. Everyone sits down from Otto to his wife, to his mother, to the KP all at the same time. It's really like a sort of great example of hospitality.
Well, you mentioned skills. What kind of skills? Are there some tangible skills that you can think of that you learned while on the job there?
I mean, it's funny because it's quite ironic because I just had this, I built it up so much in my head about the things I was going to learn, but I think it was everything in my career that I'd done, prior to that I just thought, what brought me there.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was just cooking, and it was just, that was for me was the best office in the whole world. Standing outside on that fire, I was so fortunate enough to do it. I'd only get that chance if I had cleaned all the fish in the morning, scrubbed the floors, literally scrubbed the stairs with a metal scourer, and made it up in time to do that. I'd work alongside the parrillero called Asier.
Mm-hmm.
So this old guy, and it was just such a fun experience.
You talk about fish species. What are some of the species that you weren't familiar with? I mean, were there quite a few, or?
Well, having worked in London before, we were sort of familiar with all the species in that part of the world, because in Australia, we had a lot warmer waters, so the fish has a lesser fat content, so it's a lot leaner. In Europe, the fish has a lot higher fat content, so you can really cook it. So the most classic example would be turbot, or rodaballo in Spanish, and that is just really, really withstands up to cooking it, not aggressively, but it can withstand heat for a longer time. It really takes on flavors a lot meatier than, say, some Australian fish.
What were some of your favorite dishes to cook while you were there?
The turbot, I guess, because it's so iconic, but you cannot imagine the amount of stress you have when you're trying to flip, a 6 kilo turbot. Because on the menu, it's, for 99 euro a kilo. So it's a 600 euro kilo, and you don't just have another one spare lying in
Yeah.
It takes about 40 minutes to cook. So flipping that is so incredibly nerve-wracking. And I think I got tennis elbow from doing it. But Asier just used to flip it with one hand, just over and over again. It was just like, it was magical to watch.
And how long were you there?
About a year all up.
A year.
I wanted to stay there longer, but because of Brexit at the time, my partner she had to go back to London. It was a whole sort of debacle, and I ended up going back to the UK because of that. But the time I spent at Elkano, it was like absolutely unforgettable. I mean, I was lucky enough to be there about a month ago for my birthday, and I had the most incredible meal, to date.
Do you think you'd ever go back to Spain and live?
I'd love to go back to Spain and live. I think I've been quite vocal about that to everyone in my inner circle and people I've worked with. I love it. It's a beautiful part of the world. And, northern Spain, especially San Sebastián, that proximity to France, I think you're just in the Bay of Biscay. It's this beautiful place. You're close to the land, the sea, you got the mountains. All the produce there is fantastic. You can drive to Biarritz, you're there in 20 minutes. You can drive to Pyrenees. You go surfing, skiing in the same day in winter. It's a pretty special place. I implore people to go. I think it's sort of gaining a lot in popularity now, so they don't need any more tourists, but it's just so much fun.
Well, how long have you been back in Australia?
I've been back, most recently I've been back for about 2 weeks. I've been in Europe for the past 2.5 months. But before that, I came back in October of 2024 and to work on this amazing project in Surry Hills, Bessie's.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Bessie's.
Yeah.
And Alma.
Bessie's and Alma's, yeah.
So how did that come about? And what's the food like? The
food is phenomenal. So that came through Nathan and Morgan, so the owners of Bar Copains and Vincenzo's. The whole thing came about like really, not coincidentally, but I'd originally come back to Sydney for a friend's wedding, and I'd stayed on a bit, and I'd taken Richard from the wharf. We caught up because we're friends, and I said, hey, where's hot in Sydney? Where should we go for lunch? He said, let's go check out the boys at Bar Copains. They're doing really cool stuff. So I said, yeah. So we went for lunch. The lunch was absolutely incredible. It just so happened that Nathan and Morgan were both on the pass that day, which is really rare. And so after we thanked them for the meal and, had a bit of a chat, and that was it. But about a week later, Richard texted me and said, hey, can I pass on your number to Nathan? And he gave me a call and said, hey, what are you doing? I said, at the moment, I just stepped away from Elkano. I was doing consultancy and private events. But he said, he floated this idea by me. And I said, yeah, for the right space, the right project sounds really exciting. So that's sort of where the idea sort of came from. And it was about over a year in the works. I went back to Europe, back to Spain. Nathan and Morgan and Nathan's wife, Sally, came over to London and we ate around some incredible restaurants. And then we came back and did Bessie's, which was a phenomenal experience. It's a really, really cool space.
And that opened, what was the date of that?
January 2025, I believe. Yeah.
So the menu, you basically obviously were involved from inception, but with designing the menu, you were heavily involved in that?
Yeah, no, of course. But the benefit with that is, Nathan and Morgan are both fantastic chefs. So having them to mentor me through that process was, I guess what I'm looking for is.
So what are you looking for now? Because you've stepped away now.
Stepped away now recently, yeah. So I
And
just
so
came back
what's
from.
next for Remy Davis?
That's a question on everyone's mind, including mine. There's something exciting in the works. I can't say too much about it until
We won't
it's
say
inked.
anything, I promise.
But yeah, working on something exciting,
Okay.
something creative in the space of food art. It's
In Australia or overseas?
in Australia. I'm doing a few events overseas still, but I'm working on something in Australia as well.
Has traveling made you look at Australian produce a bit differently or appreciate it more?
It's definitely made me appreciate it. Not more. What it's given me is a greater appreciation for produce all over the world. I think working in London, before I worked in London, I always thought, they get such a bad rap for their produce, but the produce in the UK is fantastic. And you get really, really incredible produce, incredible fish. And so just on a global scale, it's made me, given me a greater insight into the produce all over the world. I think Australia, we're incredibly lucky to have fantastic produce, but it's just about who you use, your suppliers, and sort of funny enough, going straight to the source, actually going to the suppliers, speaking to who you get it from, seeing where things come from, seeing how they're grown, what goes into it. That for me is important.
Well, did you have that appreciation of the whole supply chain before you left? Did it open your eyes?
It opened my eyes a lot to it. And I think going to Spain was a sort of turning point for me, because you go to the markets and the fishmongers, the butchers, the fruitologists, they're all, people in their 60s, and it's been their career, and they have so much passion, and it's so beautiful. And there's not many, there are some people in Sydney doing it, definitely. But you don't see it on that sort of a smaller scale. Just the guy on the corner butcher store have so much passion into what they're doing, It's phenomenal to see. It's really a really special place.
So is there a country in particular that's really influenced the way you cook today, or have you kind of melded it all together and that's kind of come up with your own style?
I think on a broader sense, Mediterranean, I mean, that's sort of taking the easier way out. I think as Australians, we don't really, it's just, we can't really pinpoint what that is. But that's, the Adriatic, southern France, Spain, Italy. I think that whole area just is this beautiful melting pot is what I lean into.
What about kitchen culture? Your teams. What kind of culture do you enjoy in the kitchen?
All of it. I mean, being in a kitchen is like, you're working with your best friends. It's fun. You've really got to get in there and graft. It's not easy. I think on a whole, Australia, we're in the sort of forefront of promoting this healthy work-life balance. And there's guys that are definitely doing it, but I think there needs to be, more work to be part of that systemic change, really actively doing it. I think as a whole we are, but definitely in Europe, it's kitchen culture, it can be so toxic. And I want to sort of, harp on about that, but it's just true. I mean, everybody knows. And it happens in sort of all different, workplaces, but it's just, I guess it's a very political environment you're in, and you're high pressure all the time. So I think if you're in the, have the opportunity to be an industry leader or be in that position as a head chef or manager, and you're managing a team, it's so important to promote such a healthy culture. And if there's any issues, address them immediately.
What do you look for when you're hiring? What qualities in a person or a chef?
Good attitude.
Yeah.
All skills are teachable. I mean, look, you don't have to be the most talented person in the world to be a cook. I mean, and I truly believe that. I mean, you can learn. It's a teachable skill, right? And repetition. I think attitude is the most important thing. Just working well with people,
Do you feel that you've
respecting the produce? It's just an important part of being a chef. Being inquisitive,
Do you feel you've had to make any sacrifices, to get to where you are today in your career? And
Probably
are you
my
content
social life.
with where on your social life?
No, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I think that being in the kitchen really it gave me a really good sense of the duty is not the right word. I think I didn't really enjoy school very much, and I was always late to school. I was, but as soon as I got a job working kitchen, I was always there on time. I was there early, there setting up my station, making sure I was ready. I just enjoyed the
discipline.
The discipline. That's exactly.
And almost like self-discipline.
Yeah, I enjoyed the discipline of it. Yeah, sort of ironed me out a bit.
Mm. Well, have you had many self-doubts along the way? You mentioned you've got quite a few mentors, which is fantastic. In fact, in the studio today, I've got my mentee here from Tasting Success program through TAFE. And what does mentorship mean to you?
I think everyone sort of deals with self-doubt at some point in their life, or imposter syndrome. I think in Australia as well, there's a lot of tall poppy syndrome, the opposite. And I think part of that is you just got to ask yourself, why not? Why not me? Or, why can't I do this? Because at some point, every person or mentor or successful person in their life asks themselves the same question. And it's just about actually doing it, It's as simple as that, really. Why not you?
So do you think that that's something travel has really educated you or at least allowed you maybe more confidence to back yourself?
100%. It's definitely broadened my horizons. So I implore any young chef to go and do it. And I think if you forget about the 3 passports, that was never the defining factor for me, which is I want to get out and learn as much as possible. And, cooking allowed me to do that. So work in different kitchens. It's AI hopefully won't replace me anytime soon. So I'm not scared about that. I can just go and if I want to get a job in London, I can get a job in London. If I want to get a job in Italy, I can get a job in Italy. If I want to get a job in Spain, I can get a job in Spain, just working in kitchens.
Well, are you close to your family?
Yeah, I'm very close to my family. Yeah.
So what happens when you're traveling overseas? Have you had any dark times, or even in Australia being a chef and choosing that career path?
No, I mean, I think I spoke to my mum more when I was overseas because of WhatsApp, and it made me feel old, because this is not 10 years ago, but this is, I would be calling and say, this is incredible. I can just FaceTime you on WhatsApp. And we spoke more when I was overseas than we do now, because I'd be because of the time zone difference, I'd be finished work and I'd cycle home and I'd FaceTime. I'd say, hey, just, catch up just 5 minutes, but it was good. Modern technology.
And she's very supportive of your travels and... Yeah,
very supportive. She's very well traveled herself. So traveling has been a big part of my family.
Is she a good cook?
No. No, my parents aren't good cooks, and I can say that on air. I don't mind. I think
we can edit it if we need to.
No, that's fine. You don't need to edit it. I think it's been part of the inspiration for me cooking. I wanted to cook. My parents, they appreciate good food. But I think my dad eats to survive. It's more of a sustenance thing for him. I think
I've never understood that. I've never understood that. But
they're fine with that.
I used to date a guy a long, long time ago when I lived in San Francisco, and he told me he ate for survival. And I'm like,
I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Yeah.
What do you think the next challenge is that excites you? Is it this project that you can't talk about?
That's definitely exciting me.
I'm so intrigued.
I'll tell you more at a later date, but once it's inked, it's I'm excited to be back in Sydney. I grew up here, I enjoy it. I think that the dining scene is in Sydney and Melbourne, Australia, is ever evolving. I'm excited to be here. I think that what's interesting now, coming back and seeing it compared to London or Paris, Sydney side, I think we're looking for a more immersive dining experience, not just a traditional restaurant. And I think that's what, when you talk about these sort of multifaceted venues, et cetera, or, getting more bang for your buck, accessibility, because, the cost of everything's going up these days. It's margins getting smaller. People want more value for what they get. And I think that is the constant pressure that restaurateurs and chefs are facing. So I think when you have this different experience or a little bit outside the box, people more receptive to it.
And the diners, I mean, their expectations, that whole landscape's changing.
Yeah, the whole landscape's changing, I think. Yeah.
That's exciting.
I'm excited. I'm an optimist, though, and it's often been my downfall.
How so? Why has that been your downfall?
Because I just always, assume
the glass is half full?
I'm always a glass is half full. I think it's the rose-tinted glasses,
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
I can't help it.
No, I think it's wonderful. Would you be up for doing a quick fire?
Yeah.
Okay. Best food city in the world.
Oh, that's not a quick fire. I don't know. San Sebastián.
One ingredient you'll never get tired of.
Really good quality olive oil.
Most memorable staff meal.
It's always Elkano. Always. And look, I've been fortunate enough to work in some incredible places with incredible people, and all of the ethos around staff meal is always an integral part of the day. Everyone's eating together. But at Elkano, we literally set white tablecloths, 2 sets of cutlery, and we even on Saturdays we put cider down on the table, and I just remember it. It's such a beautiful memory. Everyone eating together was really the true sense of the word family meal.
Well, name 3 condiments in your fridge.
Mustard and hot sauce. That's aioli, I guess. I usually make my own aioli.
Still a condiment.
Still a condiment. I usually make my own aioli.
After you make it, you pop it in the fridge?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll count.
It counts.
I've got an ingredient that I brought in the studio. Can I share it with you? Maybe you know it. Maybe you cook with it. I'd love to know if you do. Do you mind? It's a bit of a surprise. So as this is audio as well, I'll explain what it is. It's bee pollen, Australian bee pollen. This is from the North Shore. Have you ever had bee pollen?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. We need to go back to the mic. I've learned my lesson.
It's very floral.
So this is bee pollen. It is very floral. So what would you do with bee pollen?
I'd put it over some vanilla ice cream with some good quality olive oil. Yeah. Or maybe do a honey tart and have this crushed up on top with a bit of maybe fennel seed. Be nice.
I love it. I think it's got that depth of flavor. It actually has protein in it. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Interesting little ingredient.
I think I did bee pollen on a dish not too long ago. I think we did with like a chocolate dish with some bee pollen and some coffee and orange oil. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
It was good.
All right. Well, if you need to source some, just let us know, because we know a few beekeepers out there that have bee pollen, and we're big fans of it. In closing, is there anything you'd like to leave us thinking about?
Yeah, what's coming next? What's coming next, TBC? Just a little bit.
Well, you leave us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, on a cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger, Remy. Well, that's okay. We're happy to do that, and we look forward to following your journey. And thank you very much for coming on the Straight to the Source podcast. It's been wonderful having you.
Thank you.
And learning about you.
It's been a pleasure to be here. It's a beautiful studio.
Oh, thank you.
It's really lovely.
And we'll be in touch.
I like the green couch.
Oh, I know. I told you. It's becoming famous now.
Very comfy.
Yeah, good. All righty. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening in. We really hope you enjoyed the conversation.
We would be keen to hear from you if you have a story to share or a topic that we should dive into.
Drop us a line. We always love hearing from you.